piano. My name is Jacobs Blum, and I'm going to be discussing my artistic practice and finding my way back through visual storytelling. Next slide, please. I am Haudenosaunee, specifically Lower Cayuga Nation of Six Nations of the Grand River Territory, Wolf Clan on my mom's side, and German on my dad's. I am 29 years old and born and raised and currently living in what is now known as Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, which is the ancestral homelands of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation and Treaty 3 between the Lakes Purchase land. I first wanted to say that I'm very grateful to Celeste Padre Spade and Joy Porter for this invitation. It's truly an honor to be asked to be a part of this conference alongside all of these incredible people involved. So today I'm going to take you through my artistic practice through storytelling. Next slide, please. So to give you context into my practice, I want to rewind and tell you a bit about my positionality. Positionality is an important word because it's how you approach and navigate the world. Positionality is bringing together your lived experience and teachings that you have received throughout your life that have shaped you and what have brought you into this very moment today. Your positionality is going to be ever evolving throughout your life. So as I shared earlier, I'm a mixed Indigenous and European person, and I grew up in Hamilton, which is a large city center. And I had limited access to my community of Six Nations. And also I'm a white presenting person. And because of my proximity to whiteness, I also carry privilege. And I grew up with biases that are rooted in colonial thought because that was instilled in me growing up. I always felt different within both of my families, and I still feel like I kind of walk between two worlds. I don't feel truly rooted within each of them. But I always felt a deep longing for connection and belonging to community. So growing up in Hamilton within the public school system, I didn't receive any knowledge about Indigenous history. Indigenous peoples were positioned only in the past and that they were no longer living. And this made me very confused about my identity and caused me to kind of hide who I was. Um, and being like a white presenting person, this was kind of like easy for me. And if I did share, then I was kind of met with like stereotypical comments, which made me like want to hide even further and retreat into myself. And this is a term that I didn't learn until later on in life, but this is called internalized racism. And this surfaced in many different ways in my life. And I was just very embarrassed of our drumming and our songs. And I would often disassociate if someone were to make comments about Indigenous peoples, where I wouldn't take it personally because I feel like I disassociated from my identity. And it also wasn't as encouraged as something to be proud of within my own home. I share this experience because this was my positionality at the time, but positionality changes and evolves over time. And I recognize that I have a responsibility to unlearn and relearn and hold myself accountable and to show up for my community. My positionality changed when I was in post-secondary. I went to Sheridan College in Oakville, Ontario for the Bachelor of Photography program from 2011 to 2015. And during my third year in school, we were in the process of developing a thesis project for our final year. Next slide, please. At that time, my grandmother on my mom's side passed away. She was such like an amazing, funny, kind, giving person. And at her funeral, I had learned that my grandmother attended the Mohawk Institute Residential School, or Mush Hole, as it's called. And I didn't know what this meant at the time because of my lack of education in school. And I started doing my research and learning about the residential school system, which led me into the deepest rabbit hole of history that I had literally no idea existed. And that moment kind of like hit me like a brick wall. I could see how the trauma resonated within my family and within myself, that I could feel it in my body. And this is called intergenerational trauma. I was so frustrated and upset at my own lack of knowledge at the time. Like, how could this affect my family so deeply? But I had just literally no idea it existed. And I realized that this was the colonial agenda, was to assimilate us into unknowing. And that became my thesis project for school, is how do I push back against this and how do I begin my reclamation journey? Next slide, please. So this series means red in Cayuga language. And this is the body of work I created for my thesis. And it was really that kind of like first step in reclaiming my indigeneity. My first inquiry was to explore the question of what does it mean to walk between two worlds? And as I photographed the series, I really took time for self-reflection and to like feel my emotions. A lot of weighted emotions were surfacing for me, and I was just, so grateful to be able to navigate it through art. This is the very first image that I took for the series, and it's the first marker, I would say, from the city of Caledonia and into the Six Nations Reserve. And you can see the Haudenosaunee Confederacy flag on the top of the smoke shop and off to the left as well. And these are symbols of pride and resilience and how we came together as Six Nations. And really, my goal with this image was to show the distance between my community and myself. And that's why I'm pulled back so far. I chose to shoot this image at dusk to kind of create like a cold and like ominous tone, which is like reminiscent of my unknowing. And the smoke shop is in the center of the image, which makes it feel static and almost uncomfortable. But it also felt cathartic for me to explore these narratives photographically. It allowed me to navigate my emotions and start my healing journey, which is something that I just couldn't put into words at the time. Next slide, please. So I wanted to show this image in contrast. So this is also a part of the series, in which is in my cousin's dining room on Six Nations. You can really feel the closeness and connectivity of family through the photographs. But again, there's this kind of feeling of isolation. The chair is empty. And again, there's kind of the distance between the subject matter and myself. It was a conscious decision to kind of shoot this off center. And the hanging photographs and the chair are kind of like facing away from the camera. And it gives a sense that I'm present within the space without being fully a part of it or belonging. But there's still a warmth to the image. And you can see that warm light kind of reflecting off the photographs on the wall. I wanted the viewer to feel those tensions and get a sense of how I'm feeling in the space. Next slide, please. So I wanted to show this image to speak to how composition and symbolism can really help convey a message in just a subtle and powerful way. This is a part of the Grand River, which has been our Haudenosaunee traditional territory since 1792. And I didn't only want to focus on the trauma. I wanted to center the narrative within hopefulness. And to me, this is a hopeful image. You can see like the river moving in a forwards motion towards the top of the image, and just reminiscent of my path, that it's ongoing and ever flowing just like the river. And as the river converges into a point, this is called leading lines, and your eye will want to naturally follow these lines through the image in an upwards motion. And so this is like really an embodiment of my journey. And water holds great significance to us as Indigenous peoples. It's healing and it's renewal. So this is kind of like what I'm doing through my work. And you can kind of see like that the glittering light off of the water gives a sense of hopefulness as well. So I'm going to discuss another body of work, which is kind of a jump in time from my last series. I created the thesis in 2014 and 2015, and this body of work I created in 2018 and 2019. So I'm going to take you through the images with another story. Since I started my research into Haudenosaunee history, I longed to visit my ancestral homelands of Cayuga Lake. And this is one of the Finger Lakes in upstate New York, which I would say is about five-ish hours away from me in Hamilton. But I always felt like a barrier within myself, or a lack of confidence in my indigeneity, that stopped me from going for a long time. But in winter 2018, I finally felt ready. It was when I had a dream about meeting my ancestors on my homelands and being greeted by them through creation, so through the land and through the water. And when I had that dream, I kind of took it as a sign that I was ready. Next slide, please. So one day I packed up my tripod and my camera, and I headed out early in the morning just by myself. And I drove to about St. Catharines area, which is about 20 minutes away from the Canadian US border. and just a nervous wave of anxiety, washed over me. And I just wanted to turn around and go back home. I didn't feel ready. But in that moment, a hawk had flown over my car. And this reminded me of my grandmother. She had such an amazing sense of humor. And she once told me when I was like 10 years old that if I see a hawk, then I should go to the casino because I would win. And, being 10, I'm like, okay, grandma. But since her passing, I honestly see hawks all of the time. And so I knew she was kind of with me in that moment, and it gave me the courage to continue. Next slide, please. Along my drive, I saw 26 hawks, and they weren't off in the distance. Like, they were just so close to me as I was driving to my homelands, and it just felt like they were bringing me to home with them. So once I got to Cayuga Lake, I was just completely overwhelmed with a comforting feeling. It felt like I had lived there my whole life, even though I had never been there before, and it's mostly cottages now. But being on the land is a feeling that I just can't describe. So I turned off my GPS and I kind of navigated the area as I did. Next slide, please. But there were moments that kind of took me out of that feeling and I guess like back into like a reality. I came across many of these signs. So again, it was kind of like that colonial agenda into manipulating the population into thinking that we were savages, or destroying us was kind of like this noble act. So it says, site of principal, Cayuga Village destroyed September 23rd, 1778, by the Sullivan campaign. And it felt like I needed to kind of document these signs as evidence, and to reclaim our narrative of, again, that we are still here and living despite these efforts. And me being there felt political and showing that we are reclaiming ourselves and that we had not been lost and we had not been broken. Next slide. But then I came across a trail that led me into this incredible waterfall, and I was just completely overwhelmed with emotion because it's so beautiful, and I could really feel the power of the waterfall in my body. It's about 100 feet tall, so you could really feel like that rumble in the ground, and I could just feel like that my ancestors were there with me. Next slide. This was taken at the waterfall as well, but you can kind of feel like that energy of the water moving. Next slide. So I headed home around dusk, and on my way, I had been thinking about what brought me here and why did I feel such a pull to visit my homelands. And then a thought hit me, and I had to pull off to the side of the road because I thought I was going to crash my car. But I realized what had brought me here was love. The love that I have for my ancestors and the love that they have for me. This love lives within my blood and my bones and transcends time and space. I had never met them, but I know them and they know me. So, me returning home is that blood memory that was built into my DNA. And remember when I said I felt comfortable on the land and like I'd been there before? That was kind of my body remembering that connection to the land that my ancestors gave me through my DNA. And I share this image because I'm pulled over the side of the road with this realization, and I photograph the moon. And as Haudenosaunee people, we call her grandmother moon. So this image was really from my grandmother. And again, my learning journey has just been the most incredible experience of my life. And every day I'm so grateful to be able to navigate my journey through art. And it feels like my ancestors are bringing me back home to myself. And a friend of mine once told me that my ancestors are holding me within my own body. And that's that blood memory that I was talking about. And it made me feel so validated and so loved. And I just want to continue living in a good way with love and kindness. So today I wore my grandmother's ring in her honor. And this other ring was gifted to me by another granny. Her name is Norma, who lives in Tyendinaga. And she knows I love pink. So I wanted to honor her as well. Next slide, please. So I wanted to share another piece with you. This is a video work. I had recently joined the Bawadin Collective, which is a group of Indigenous creatives collaborating on amazing Indigenous video content. So I wanted to share my latest collaboration with them, which is giving thanks and celebrating the land and all of their gifts. And if I could shamelessly plug them, they can be found on YouTube. They collaborate with incredibly talented Indigenous creators, and they're always putting out new content on their channel. And I'm just really grateful to be a part of their team. It's so important that Indigenous peoples have autonomy over their own narratives. And reflecting on my own work when I'm photographing or videoing Indigenous community members, photography has historically been an extractive and manipulative process, and often without little to no consent from the people in the images, and especially Indigenous peoples. So I'm very hyper aware of this in my practice, and I really take time to build trusting relationships, and I'm always very clear with my intent and ensuring that it's a safe and comfortable process. Next slide, please. So the next evolution of my practice is going to be like that continued journey of building community relationships and reconnecting with my ancestors. And I'm really working to build a deeper understanding of my responsibilities to youth and in the next 7 generations. My recent research has been on the themes of Indigenous futurities that relates to land, cosmologies, kinships, and original teachings throughout time. So the past, the present, and the future as they are happening simultaneously, as it's not linear. And Indigenous Futurities really aims to empower a new vision for the future in which Indigenous knowledge, perspectives, teachings, and ancestral technologies, they're utilized and they're valued. And so I'm continuing the development of that last body of work to create a new series based on the theme of Indigenous futurities titled Living in Lost Connections. And this series is really going to be like a reflective look of what it means to access my ancestors by reimagining and remembering relationships that are both human and non-human through my own body, and acknowledging that not all relationships can be recovered due to the effects of colonialism. But Living in Lost Connections will really aim to be an honest and critical look at reclamation work. Next slide, please. So Nyawagoa, for listening to my stories. I'm just so grateful for your time and your energies. Please take good care. Ona.